Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining us for another episode of the Daily Bizling. Kathleen Gramzay is back, and today we're talking about the critical point for increasing your resilience to stress. So, Kathleen, thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Great to be back. We've been talking a lot about this process of our automatic response to chronic stress, and also when we're triggered, when our nervous system perceives a threat. And we're talking about that fight, flight, or freeze responses. So we already know that awareness is the first key, right? To be able to actually interrupt or stop the hijack of our kinder, more thoughtful selves, right? And the problem is that sometimes that awareness happens after the fact, right? It's after we just said something unkind or lost our temper or we're impatient, or maybe we just sent an email or some kind of correspondence that we're now regretting. So the idea is, how do we interrupt that, right? Where do we get to the point? Where's that critical spot where we can catch ourselves before we go off the cliff? And that's what we're talking about today. So the beautiful thing about the body and the mind is they give clues. And we can feel these clues and we can hear these clues. So body-wise, those clues are paying attention to what you're feeling literally in your body. Maybe your throat feels like it's constricting. Maybe your heart's beating fast. Maybe you feel like you got a knot in your stomach, or maybe you start to sweat, right? Or maybe in the case of freeze, maybe it's like this sense of dread you're feeling. That's the body clues. So you start paying attention, because if you know those are happening, you're started down that path. Mind-wise, it's the mind chatter, right? Fight or flight, it gets busy. That's when we start judging people or judging the situation or saying snarky things in our mind that it would love to let out of our mouths. We want to catch it before that, right? And then on the free side, it's actually, maybe it just goes blank, right? Maybe it's like goes into what's the point, or those, more lower thoughts of, like what's the use, those kinds of things. So those are your cues. As soon as you see those, the idea is you want to change the channel. When I was a kid, there was a show called Night Gallery, and I loved it. And also it scared the heck out of me at times. And so literally what I would do is, I remember I would hold the remote and I would watch it until up to the part where I couldn't, like I was so scared I couldn't take it anymore. And then I would literally change the channel. And in that time that I changed the channel, I would stop, because usually I had stopped breathing, take a deep breath, and I would kind of separate myself, like I gather myself, and then I go back and I put the channel back on and I could watch the rest, I could participate. And basically that's what we're doing with our nervous system. When we catch those cues, this is our chance to change the neurological channel, so that we can then be more present and have a chance to be present with what's happening. We can separate ourselves from it enough to be able to handle what we're doing and then work with it in a more grounded way and stop that hijack.
Yeah, I mean, just understanding and being a little bit more aware of what those cues are for yourself will help you as an individual and as a leader. I know for me, on the organizational standpoint, understanding what those look like for me internally, I can now help to identify those within my own team members. And that helps us with overcoming some of those obstacles and getting our team members back on track. So this is a really good exercise, and becoming more aware will help you in all aspects of your life. So curious, Kathleen, as we look to wrap up today's conversation, do you have any specific tips or challenges for the week?
Yeah, so practice this, right? Get to know your body, and get to know your body and your mind's cues, because there's no judgment in it. Be curious and notice, because this is not a you thing. This is a human thing. This is a nervous system thing. And so notice your own physical reactions. What are they? Maybe if you have a regular coping skill of using one of these things, it's going to be the same thing, but maybe sometimes it's different. Sometimes it's a throat constriction or the heartbeat or whatever the issue, whatever the responses are. So it's curiosity, right? You're a scientist here. You're kind of just noticing, how does this vehicle I'm living in work? And so that you can be the adult in it, right? And then watch your mind chatter. Does it get really busy and you notice yourself getting really judgmental, or just really snarky things want to come out of your mouth, right? Notice that. And then the same thing, or maybe you go more into the shutdown mode. Notice those things and know that now. Then you practice, right? Practice these techniques we've been talking about in this self-empowered health series, right? Breath, looking at the plants, looking at your child's picture or video or doing whatever one of those techniques are, that is when you're changing the channel over to your resilient side. And the most important and the best piece of this information is this: every time you do it, every time you change the channel, you're actually strengthening your nervous system's response and mode of being able. So you're increasing its muscle to switch back to resilience all the time. The more you do it, the more practice you get at it in automatic pilot mode, so that it doesn't matter that you get triggered, right? Life is life. We're going to get triggered. But then the time you're triggered or the reactions can be shorter, and you can get back to being more of your thoughtful, kinder, more creative, loving self.
Really appreciate you diving into this specific conversation. I think it'll be really helpful as, people have upcoming summer travel plans, which can be a little stressful or overwhelming, or whether you're taking on new projects in the office or other things happening in the home front. I'm sure a lot of these tips in this session will certainly help a lot of individuals in the community. So Kathleen, thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. And I would love to hear if anybody's got comments of how they're using it. Please feel free to put it in the comments on LinkedIn, because we would love to hear more about what you're particularly doing and how it's helping.
Great. Thanks so much, Kathleen.
Thank you.